Welcome back to Business 110. This module covers two chapters, Chapter 10 and 11, Motivating Employees, and a chapter on how the human resources function. So let's get right into motivating. Some people are motivated by what's called intrinsic personal satisfaction, and some people extrinsic, visible recognition. So intrinsic is the person that wants to feel that they've accomplished something. It's the internal feeling of personal satisfaction, perhaps not how the world views them, as opposed to extrinsic rewards or the trophy or the public recognition. Now, most of us like a bit of both, but like most things, most people tend to side towards one or the other. And as a manager, you need to be aware of what different people look for. Evolution of management. Well, you started again way back in the early production areas where Taylor, time method, study, rule of work, very strict. And then there was a very interesting study done in your book, the Hawthorne study by Mayo, which basically determined that behavior, how people feel, matters to whether they're motivated. If they feel like they're part of the organization or part of the team or a valued employee, that tends to make a difference in how they're motivated. So it tended to go away from some of the scientifics and more towards human-based. Then Maslow came along with a theory of hierarchy of needs. The lower needs need to be met before the higher ones are fulfilled. And there are the five hierarchy of needs. And then Hertzberg took it a step further and said some of these needs are simply hygiene needs, hygiene factors. They're not going to motivate anybody. They're going to demotivate them if they're not there. So if I come into the classroom and there's no heat in the classroom and I don't feel safe and there's no lights and those are hygiene factors. They're not going to motivate me to say it's a wonderful class. They're going to demotivate me. Things like, I get a lot of self-esteem because I like the way the class is run, except those things tend to motivate. XYZ theories, you can go through the book. This short video, we're not going to touch on those. Big thing most companies do is management via objectives. The XYZ theory very quickly just talks mostly about whether employees, you assume they like to come to work or you assume they don't like to come to work. What's their nature? Management by objectives is where at the beginning of the year, at the beginning of a session, we establish objectives and then we measure the performance to those objectives. All right, Chapter 11 talks about how the human resources department is managed. Remember, the biggest challenge for human resources is achieving the best workforce. So what human resources needs to do is they need to determine what resources are needed. How do I recruit that best resources? How do I go about selecting those resources? How do I train them and develop those resources? How do I then evaluate those people? And how do I reward those people? Remember, you want to keep your best employees. The last thing is there's all sorts of legal issues around human resources, all sorts of things they can do and cannot do, driven by some of the Civil Rights Acts, etc., all sorts of things that they can't discriminate on. So, in short, human resources job is to find and develop and keep the best employees. So they do that by determining the needs, recruiting, selecting, training, evaluating, and rewarding, all within the overarching legal system that prevents discrimination. Hope this helps. Any questions, let me know. Have a good week.